So you probably got introduced to 3D printing, you find it very interesting, a friend showed it to you, maybe saw a video, and now you want one. But you're a little concerned about it's a little too difficult, or you're thinking, I don't know how to model, I don't know how to do this. So here I want to show you that it's actually very easy and very simple, and anybody can 3D print in 2023. You don't have to have modeling skills, you don't need to know how to make those models. There's a lot of resources where people have created those models for you, and you can just use them and print them. And I'm going to show you that step process from beginning to end of how that works. So obviously when it comes to picking a 3D printer, there's a lot of kinds. There's big, small, there's expensive, there's cheap ones. And the cheap ones these days are very well built. They've gotten so much down in price that you could use them for home use. There's printers like this where they come disassembled, and this is for those tinkerers and people who want to put them together, where this will come disassembled and you have to put it together, and people kind of join it. If you're not that big into tinkering and you just want a 3D printer that's put together, those exist too. They're enclosed, they can be opened. So there's a printer like this where it just comes and ready to go, and all you have to do is upload the file and pick the settings to print. So for reference, for example, the current printer that I have is the Monoprice Mini 3D version 2. I've had it for about 4 years now. As you can see, it's discontinued because it's been a little while. But this one's very small. It comes like this, pre-built, nothing to do. Take it out of the box, plug it in, and you're ready to go. I picked this personally because of the space that I was constricted to at that moment. It was very small, so I needed a printer that was small and fit in my needs. Obviously, before you buy your printer, think about how big of an item do you want to build. This is a 4.7 by 4.7 by 4.7 inch cube. That's the biggest size they can build on this. And yes, I've been a little limited to the things I can do, but it's done the job for the things I needed. There's printers that are bigger, smaller, and in a good price range. Also, the plastic that comes with buying it is relatively cheap. You kind of get a spool that gets hung on the side of this printer, and every printer is a little different. They come in a kilogram size, and usually around $20 to $30 for the plastic, depending on the material that you're using. And this Monoprice model has a lot of different printers, as you can see, bigger in size, smaller, enclosed. So whatever you prefer, and maybe the things you want to be printing. But when it comes to actually printing the object, it's very simple. So there's a lot of sites that have objects that people create, and the site that I've always used is called Thingiverse. A lot of people upload their models from games to toys to tools, you name it. I've currently used this site to print comic book hangers and wall mounts, so I can put my comic books on the walls. I had a curtain rod that had hooks that were discontinued by IKEA, so I found those hooks. I went and all I did was IKEA hooks, and I looked it up and I was like, okay, there we go. And I found the hook that I needed for my IKEA. Obviously can't find it currently right now, but that's all I did. I found the hook and I downloaded it and I fixed my issue. Maybe you just want to print a housing for your Apple Watch. So for example, somebody made an awesome Apple Watch dock. So it's like a little computer. You can 3D print this, and you have an Apple Watch dock. So let's go through the process and show you how this works. So let's say you want to print this Apple Watch charging dock. As you can tell, there's 119 comments. There's some details, what this person wrote about, what to do, how to do it, the steps you need to take. So you go to the Think files. There's 4 files for this one, for the different configurations. One for this kind of dock, one for this model, and the one that has both of these files in it. So let's go and download this one. So this is this Apple Watch dock shell. Click download, and let's go to our actual curator that we use for splicing the model. So what I use is the Ultimate Make Your Cure, same brand as the Thingiverse. The splicer they use for actually modeling and splicing the project that you're actually going to do doesn't really matter. there's things that are compatible with a lot of printers. This was compatible with a slew of printers. There's ones that come with the actual printer and they're paired together and you can use them, and that makes it easier. But so let's say you get the smaller, right? This is actually scaled to size, so you don't actually want to scale it, because if you make it bigger or smaller, your Apple Watch is not going to fit. But let's say this was something else like a car or a toy and you wanted to scale it. You'll click on this object. You have these many options where you can move things around. You can lock the model in place, which means I can't move it and physically move it by grabbing it. But if I wanted to, I can move it in the space. This gray outline that you see is the outline of my printer and the size of what can fit. And this gets curated based on the settings that you put into your 3D printer once you set up the software. So as you can see, I have the Monoprice Select Mini version 2, and I can add a printer. And there's no printer on the network, but you can add all these printers that are available on this platform. All the Ultimator ones, custom ones, 3D Maker, all these different brands are the ones that are supported with the splicer. So the chances that you won't find your printer here are very slim. And pretty much what happens is once you select the printer, all the settings are preset and you can customize them if you want, once you get a little niche with the process. So let's say this is a model that you wanted to actually make bigger. So you click the scale button. You can scale a uniform, which means if you increase X by 110%, everything else is going to increase by 110%. But let's say you want to only make the Y direction bigger. Let's say you have a screw or something that you want to make very, very long, but you want to keep the thickness the same, so you'd only make that scale different. So it will look something like this, where you only control one axis of scale to 3D printed. And let's say you got two Apple Watches and you wanted to put them side by side. Maybe this is why you want to 3D print something like that. So you can scale it. Also, the other option, you can rotate things on different axes. And if you want to print it on a different axis, or you want to move it around, or just depending how you want to do it, right? So obviously you don't want to print something that's sideways because it won't print properly. You can also mirror objects in different axes. So if you have a model per se that doesn't look right and you want to mirror it that way, you can do that too. Another cool thing about this is that once you actually splice it, it shows you the kind of step-by-step of how things look. So if you click slice here, it's going to do its slicing process, and it's going to show you that it's on my printer. It's going to take 1 hour 55 minutes, and it's going to use 21 grams of PLA. So depending on what printer you have, it doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be 1 hour 50. My printer is older, slower, and I have the setting set to draft mode, so it means it's going to go a little faster. Obviously, if you go to ultra fine, it's going to go slower because it's trying to create a more smoother print. With newer printers, they're definitely a lot faster than mine, and this would take less than 1 hour 55. But the cool thing is, once you slice it, you can go to preview and you can actually look what the printer is actually doing. So we told it that it's going to be 40% infill, and we can actually use the scale right here to kind of see how it's going to print. So it's going to print this little base in the bottom as an adhesive plate, so the object doesn't fall off. And then as you go up in layers, this is every layer. It shows you how the printer is actually printing, what it's doing, where it's keeping things hollow. So as you can tell right here, not everything is solid. This right here is hollow and it's making a crisscross. That's why we said 40% infill. And just because it's 40% infill doesn't mean it's not sturdy. This construction is what the printer and the software does to use less of plastic but create the best model still. So that's basically it. So once you click splice, you save this to a disk or a USB drive, or send it to your printer over Wi-Fi, depending on what printer you have. Click print and then get the model you want.